22 years back, the institute's vision was so high that might be 22 years later, the technology is going to take over and we should not be left behind. This is where we have actually moved towards over a period of time. People have gained the certificate that is knowledge, but now the wisdom to apply that knowledge is on the corners, and I 100%, I'm pretty confident that every chartered accountant is actually going to take this step forward and ensure that not only IT means income tax, IT means information technology, which is actually supporting the entire ecosystem of tax, governance, audit, accounting, and everything when you talk about with regards to the numbers across the board. And we are going to be relevant all throughout.
When AI is there, I was very much worried, and I was also very happy that such a big conference, what to speak and what not to speak. And I was thinking on this dais that whether my avatar can help me out in this situation. And friends, this is the testimony, this is the future. Whatever you are doing in your life, in your practice, in your job, all will be hit by AI. And for the 2 days, you have to note down what you are doing and what AI can do for you. With these words, thanks to all of you and happy learning. Thank you.
And now, as we move forward to our next technical session, is on AI applications in banking, finance, and retail sectors. Artificial intelligence has become so important for its potential to change how we live and how we work. And this rapidly expanding population of generative AI tools will be incredibly useful for our field. And now, to tell us so much more about this, I would be inviting our speakers for this session. Can we give a great round of applause for CA Rajiv Gupta, who's the Vice President, Internal Audits at Flipkart. Our next speaker, I would like to invite on stage CA Rajashekara Visvesarvara, who's Maya VP Global Head to Business Consulting, Finacle at Infosys. Once again, a great round of applause, please. And I request CA Revati Rangunathan, who's the Vice Chairperson at SIRC of ICAI, to please come on stage to welcome our speakers with a planter. Can we once again give a great round of applause for our speaker, CA Rajiv Gupta. And now I request ma'am to welcome our next speaker, CA Rajashekara Visveswara. And now I would be requesting our speaker, CA Rajiv Gupta sir, to kindly take over.
Good afternoon. I thank the ICAI to having organized this event, which is a topical subject, and as well as providing an opportunity to share our insights into what we see, the application of AI in the banking area. And of course, my co-panelist, Rajiv, is going to talk about the application of that in finance and retail. And I represent Infosys Finacle. As you're aware, Finacle is the banking software running in more than 100 countries, being used by banks all over the globe, and there are more than 500 installations of Finacle. And what I'm going to share now in next 15 to 20 minutes is basically what we have heard from these banks and the $10 billion balance sheet size. So it's a wide spectrum of banks looking at in terms of using technology to transform themselves. So what we are hearing from the perspective of the application of AI in their environment and some of the specific use cases, which considering that we're already on top of time, I think we have 15 minutes delay, I may not be able to get into details of some of the use cases, but whatever relevant and useful for you, I will be focusing on that. If you now look at some time back, the McKinsey published a report saying that every industry is going to get impacted in terms of either the growth impetus or in terms of the increase in the revenues depending on which industry they are coming from. by usage of the artificial intelligence in their own environment. And while I'm not going to talk about all other industries, because this specific subject is around banking, banking itself is expected to be having anywhere between 200 to 340 billion dollars of upside in terms of the revenue, or in terms of percentages, going to be around 2.8% to 4.7%. And specifically, if you now look at the areas where AI is going to be used majorly in the banking, if you now look at in terms of the darkest blue in that, which is in the software engineering area, as well as in the customer operations area, and in some extent in the marketing area. So each one of these areas is going to get transformed as we speak going forward when it comes to in terms of usage of the artificial intelligence in the banking space. So having said that, we also conducted a study within our customer base to look at what are the areas where banks would feel like they're going to implement AI. Of course, they spoke about more than 100 such areas, but we have taken the topmost areas where the application of that will be useful. And this is bucketed into 3 broad categories of typical banking operations. There's a front office operation, there's a mid office operation, there's a back office operation. If you now look at in the front office operation, largely as suggested by the McKinsey, it is going to be in the area of sales and marketing, and specifically the customer service improvement, and as well as in terms of looking at the wealth advisory. Because if you now look at globally, there is going to be around $70 trillion of wealth getting transferred to the next generation, which is the inheritance of the wealth. It is specifically in the Western hemisphere of the world. But if you now look at in terms of the developing economies, there is a surge in terms of the mass affluent and to some extent in a high net worth individual category. And that is evidenced by the surge in the derivatives transactions that you are witnessing in India. India is the largest derivative markets in the world today, beating the US and the China by almost 6 times to 10 times. So that is one area where banks are looking at in terms of the front office operations, looking at helping the wealth advisory capabilities to be much more augmented and amplified with the use of AI. And if you now look at the mid office, largely in the banking operations, if you now look at the mid office is largely around the risk assessment in terms of taking care of the credit risk or the operational risk, or even for that matter in terms of the exposure to any of the market risk that the bank may be exposing itself in terms of the position that they have taken in the market. And not just that, a lot of the payment transactions, if you now look at in Indian context, there are more than 14 billion transactions that are processed in UPI every month. It is not a small amount. It is more than almost 6 times all the transactions put together in China and 10 times all the transactions put together in US. And this is not going to stop. It is going to get increased month on month. So how do you make sure that in such a rapid transactions, 400 million transactions every day happening, how do you make sure that you reduce not just the fraud, you detect, and you also prevent that is happening in a milliseconds or a microsecond kind of situation. And that is one area where banks are looking at making sure that the fraud detection and fraud prevention and applying the anti-money laundering in an advanced way when it comes to in terms of looking at the mid-office operations. But when you look at the back office, this is where a lot of things happens in terms of the processing, whether it's in terms of settlement, in terms of between banks to banks, or in terms of international operations, or in terms of these SWIFT messages, honors, offers, Vostro, Nostro, all those transactions, settlement processing takes place. And as well as where you provide the cash and liquidity, where a lot of your treasury operations, where you have taken positions on behalf of customers for the forex exposure, or you have taken some forward contracts. And how do you make sure that those kind of transactions are taken care at a millisecond level, because the prices keep changing in the international market when it comes to in terms of these forex transactions. So reconciliation is one area. And as I mentioned, even if you look at in terms of the real-time payments in Indian context, the 14 billion transactions that I talked about every month happening, how do you make sure the reconciliation is real-time? So those are the things that our banks are looking at in terms of implementing when it comes to the AI in these 3 broad categories of operations. So let's now look at in terms of, if you want to do it, what is the under the hood in terms of AI broader technology. I think since morning you would have heard about this general technology about AI. AI is not just one tool or one technology. It's a composite umbrella under which many technologies come together, whether it in terms of machine learning, deep learning, or you have the natural language processing or natural language generation, or in terms of use of just the speech recognition, the visual perception, all of that coming together to help you under the umbrella of the AI. But all of that depends on a right set of data and analytics. Without the data, I think AI, whatever you're going to generate, is going to be not that much of useful or effective when it comes to in terms of application of that. So moving on, if you now look at, I just want to take few examples, and first and foremost, the data analytics that I wanted to talk about, because banking is one area where banks are sitting on data for 100+ years, whether it's the transaction data, the user data, the branch data, or in terms of the customers data, all of that is being stored, and this data is a lot more confidential and privacy in nature, and many countries are going and implementing data privacy laws around it, which cannot be used or exposed or provided without the consent of the customer. We followed this in the GDPR in the European context, and in Indian context, there's a bill pending, the digital, the public data access kind of a thing. So if you now look at the popular applications when it comes to in terms of data and analytics, is the fraud detection. How do you make sure that you create a pattern, the behavior, a customer who's been, for example, me, who's usually do transactions based out of Bangalore, and if some transaction happening in Hyderabad, which has not happened in the last 5 years, how do you make sure that even before rejecting it, how do you make sure in a millisecond you process the transaction and understand that, yes, there's some flight data available, there is some the mobile data available, the GPS location is available, all of that is combined with a lot of the tactical data, the transit data, and all of that, and make sure that the transaction is genuine and go and process it, and it all has to happen in a real-time basis. And that is one area where the data and the analytics will help you in terms of the fraud detection. The second one is the sales and marketing. I think this is where the banks are really lacking. So if you now look at the entities in the retail area, which my colleague is going to talk about when the Flipkart experiences, where they have completely used the data about the customers to go ahead and suggest the next best product, but that has not happened in the banking to a large extent. So though you have a lot of data of the customers, you're not sure what to project and what to suggest. And this is one area where AI can help them in terms of moving away from the traditional way of looking at a segmented offering to a specific customer offering. So you have to move away from the individual identities to a customer specific kind of activity. Now let me go to why this is the aspiration. In our own assessment, we have found that what is the bank's readiness in terms of data analytics platform. We conducted a survey with the banks of more than 1,000 banks globally, and this is where you see. So with respect to the prescriptive analytics, with respect to predictive analytics or descriptive analytics, or in terms of the diagnostic analytics, each of the banks, if you now look at in terms of the most prepared or very successful, they're all less than 10%. And somewhat successful, again, they are less than 25%. So it is a longer journey for the banks, even though they have the data, but in terms of how to use it, how to leverage it, how to make it much more effective is going to be a difficult thing. Let me move to the second case, where it's basically we're talking about, apart from the data analytics, which is the foundation layer, you move away in terms of using it for machine learning. So you provide a lot of this data to learn itself and understand itself, enhance itself, and keep learning on a continuous basis. So what are the things that we are looking at in a popular application when it comes to in terms of the machine learning applications? It's basically, again, going back to the advanced assessment of the fraud and risk. So it is basically taking the historical perspective of the data and some of the social events that are happening and basically linking it to something else. So for example, we have heard a use case where somebody has booked a flight from Delhi to Kathmandu. That data is one isolated data. Then there is a huge withdrawal of a cash in Bathinda in northern India, which actually is not a tourist destination or a destination which is not meant for any trading, but there is a huge withdrawal of a cash from an ATM. Then there is a transaction where a suitcase which is unattended, one of the bus or a platform, railway platform. How do you make sure that you link all these three events, saying that there's somebody who's withdrawn the cash to fund somebody to place a suitcase and then provide a ticket for the person to escape from India to Kathmandu? How do you now link this discrete transaction to coming together? And that is where the machine learning comes in terms of analyzing the historical and linking it to a lot of unstructured data which is available for you. And of course, there are many banks that are using it, considering the time constraint that I have, may not be able to go through that in terms of details, in terms of the examples. So, but this machine learning is also going to help you in terms of segregating the customers, because there are two sets of customers I've taken as an example. There's the millennials customers and there's the Gen Z customers. So if you now look at the differences between them, communicate with text is what used to happen when the millennials used to talk. But today, many people are communicating with emojis. There is not even a hi, there is not even a bye, there is only a emoji, a smiley that comes into picture. So how do you make sure that these kind of generations are taken care of as a customer in your profile, so that you interact with them in a contextual and a relative way, so that they don't lose interest in you, consider that you are no more relevant to them? So moving on to the third layer, which is the deep learning layer, which is getting into a much more deeper. And this is where banks are looking at application of that into marketing. So marketing has been an area where it is left out, as I mentioned earlier, in the banking, because they don't know what to market and whom to market. One-on-one marketing has happened in the retail and in the entertainment area, but how do you make sure that the segment of one happens here? Earlier, it used to be a one product fits all. There is a savings bank product means it's a savings bank product for all of them. But how do you make sure that the savings bank product for senior citizens, the savings bank product for the students? How do you further segregate inside that and specialize and make it from a product segment to a customer specific and to a specificity of the customers depending on the likes, hobbies and inputs and dislikes and whatever social network information that you get from him. And then you provide a hyper local product to him. That is where the deep learning comes into picture. And while doing this, just look at in terms of the application of the deep learning at the fraud area itself. So now look at the traditional methods, which without using the machine learning and the deep learning, you would have actually used it for a rule based. That means if the transaction is more than 50,000 rupees or 100,000 rupees, then you trigger an exception saying that this customer used to do only transaction below 50,000, 100,000, but suddenly there is a transaction that is happening. That is a rule based. But if you now look at the machine learning, it is basically a model based, which actually computational algorithm that goes beyond the rule and looks at many other discrete transactions to be combined. And if you further prone it to a deep learning environment in a fraud detection, it goes into the transaction amount, the user IP, the mobile IMI number, the check for the location and linkage it with the bad actors, and all of that comes into picture, which we may not be as a normal human will be able to correlate. And that is what a deep learning kind of a situation does in terms of helping the banks to unearth any of these transactions in fraudulent in nature. So moving on to the natural language processing, I think if you now look at most of the bigger companies, whether it's the Google or the Oracle or the Facebook, or these companies are investing very heavily in the voice recognition softwares in the last few years. Because if you now look at the human in a communication perspective, either you can type. And type is largely, it is 140 characters where Twitter started, but beyond that, you will not be able to type much faster. So, but voice is able to now communicate more. So that's why you have to now able to use the voice as an authenticator, use voice as an access entry into something, or use voice as transaction carrying element. So this is where banks are looking at in terms of automation. The entire summarization of the bank statement, instead of somebody going through it, you automate it and summarize it in an audio way, and it also highlight some of the peculiarities in the transactions or in the statements that the customer may be facing. And this is going to help the customers who are not able to read and write. And many situations where we have seen in our experience, where if you go to Vietnam, there is 70% unbanked population. Indonesia has more than 80% unbanked population or underbanked population. But how do you make sure that all of them, they do not know the English, but they're all connected very well on the internet and they use mobile. And the mobile penetration is almost 200% there. So how do you now leverage the technology availability, plus in terms of the natural language processing to help them combat anything that is related to in terms of the fraud or in terms of the security or safety issues. One of the important elements that we have seen banks are looking at is at least started in a much more advanced level is the robotic process automation. This is the application, applied AI. So if you now look at in terms of, if I can ask a question here, who is the largest employer in the world? Any answers? Who is the largest employer in the world? Yeah, typically I get the answers, it's Indian Railways or in terms of the Indian Army or the Chinese Army or Walmart and things like that. But if you now look at the largest employer in the world is inefficiency. So many companies try to cover that inefficiency by putting more and more people and more processes and more entanglement of things. So how do you make sure that you come out of that kind of inefficiency and become more effective and more productive? And there is one area where robotic process automation is helping, and banking is one such industry where a lot of inefficiencies are there because of the lot of legacy issues or in terms of the process or in terms of the compliance or in terms of the regulatory expectations. So the RPA is going to help them in terms of reduce many of those inefficiencies, become more productive and more efficient. While it is not going to stop there, because bank is not going to be stopping only at lending, borrowing, or payments, because A lot of things are getting embedded today in the banking environment. By the time an individual gets up from the bed to the time he goes to the bed, there are a lot of daily activity that he does without actually bank involved, but a lot of them have financial implications. A debit or a credit happens to the account at the end of the day. Since you get up in the morning, if you realize that there's an insurance due that you need to pay, or a credit card bill you need to pay, or you have to book a movie ticket, or you have to book a train ticket, then you move on and you say that I need to now look at in terms of filing my returns, or on the way you jump a signal and you have to file a challan for the mistake that you carried out. All of that needs to be embedded as a lifestyle activity from a banking perspective. So bank may not be visible. Banking is going to be more of an experience and less of a banking going forward. So considering that you will have a lot of these embedded actors coming into picture, you may not be now seeing the banks in a prominent way. So when we started implementation of Finacle way back in 2000, almost 80% of the transaction used to happen from the branch. And from 2010 to 2015, we saw almost that is reducing to 10% or 20%. Most of them are moving into channels. And going forward, what we see is more than 70 to 80% of transactions are going to generate and originate from not banks. It is going to be coming from the non-banking entities, or in terms of an embedded finance, which is like those social media networking companies or things like that. Just take the example of Indian UPI transaction itself. I talked about the 14 billion transactions every month. Almost 70% of that is carried out by not banks. It is carried out by the Google Pay, the WhatsApp Pay, the Amazon Pay, and the Phone Pay kind of companies. And that is the kind of embedded finance is going to come into picture, and we should be ready for that. And in this kind of an environment, AI plays a major role to make the things much more easier, much more accessible, much more affordable, much more easier for them to connect and transact. And if you now look at in this area, the tremendous opportunity for companies to come together and create an ecosystem. We have seen and spoken to many of them. This is the top 100 AI companies published by the company which is, I think I've given the CB Insights as the reference here. And these are the companies in many areas, including in banking. So they are going to be innovating and creating new kind of things, and where banks need not have to reinvent things, and they should be able to tie up with them and carry out things. So this is what I want to talk about from the perspective of banking, and where the AI can be used for engaging with the customers better and making the innovations better, transformations better, operations better. And I stop here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Can we once again have a great round of applause for Siraj Shekhra Viswara for giving such an insightful presentation. And now we see Rajiv Gupta.
Hi, good evening, everyone. By the time caller mic gets ready, I will move to the use cases in retail and finance sector. But before I do that, one of my dear friend Anand asked that, Rajiv bhai, when you are covering your session, why don't you talk about is everything, every automation which we are doing these days, is everything AI? So the answer is no. Why? Few examples of that. Firstly, many of you would have seen bots into action, which we also call as robotic process automation. Those bots, they are, Superb. Yeah. So these bots, they are based on simple logic. And the logic is anything, any process which is repeatable and which is consistent. That is something which can be moved to bots. Creating a bot is very easy. There are many software which are available and you don't need any advanced training to create that. Now those bots, RPAs, are not artificial intelligence. Yeah, so that's one very important point. Let's take another example. And very good. Let's take another example. Few years ago, a system came, a tool, a software came named DeepMind. And that was the first software, and if you Google it, okay, no. That was the first software which, when it had a competition with world chess champion Gary Kasparov, that software won and Gary Kasparov lost the match. If you Google it, it says Deep Blue is AI. Absolutely wrong. Deep Blue was an expert system. Why expert system? Because there were if-then formulas which were embedded into Deep Blue. Exact formulas. And how it won as compared to Gary Kasparov? Because that formula, that tool, could think, I think, 28 or 48 steps ahead of Gary Kasparov, thinking, if Gary does this, then I should do that. If Gary does that, I should do that. So keeping those multiple options in mind, it predicted what would be the best move for it, or prediction is the wrong word. So Deep Blue was an expert system, not an AI system. Then, few years later, came DeepMind. DeepMind was a system which was built on to compete with AlphaGo. That's a Chinese game. You Google it, it will tell you that this DeepMind is AI, and Google is correct. For the second search, Google is correct because DeepMind is based on AI. Now you may say, Rajiv, you are confusing us. Deep Blue is not AI, DeepMind AI. The difference is simple. The difference is when to a software you code specific solutions, you code all possible options in that solution, then it is not AI. So keeping that logic in mind, Deep Blue, the chess solver system, was expert system, not AI. DeepMind was based on machine learning because nobody coded all possible solutions. This second system was learning based on playing with the AlphaGo player. Yeah? So that's the start of presentation on special request from Anand Bhai sitting there in the audience. So every automation is not AI. Then, since morning, we are talking about AI. And on the roads, in your offices, we sometimes say AI, we sometimes say AI ML, we sometimes say AI ML DL, deep learning. Yeah? It is as if we are saying Rajiv Gupta, Rajiv Kumar Gupta. So Rajiv is same Rajiv, Rajiv Gupta is also same, Rajiv Kumar Gupta may also be same. But AI ML are not same. AI ML DL not same. But when we talk about these three terms, either we talk about first name or we talk about all three together as if they are same. So I thought I will spend 2 minutes in just decoding how these three are different. Artificial intelligence is the umbrella software. It means any software which can think or which can try to think like human being. It can be any software. So that's the simplest part. The second is machine learning. Machine learning is one way of implementing artificial intelligence. There can be the other ways also. Right now, machine learning is one of the most popular ways by which AI is getting implemented. So what machine learning does? In case of your calculator, let's compare it with calculator and Excel. In case of calculator or Excel, if you type equal to 2 plus 2, both will always give 4. There can never be a mistake when it will say 5. Never. Why? Because these are hard-coded. Hard-coded in these tools. But in case of machine learning, the code we write where we say, I don't know the answer. Please take the answer from data. Now you may say, what the foolishness is this? Why you're not hard coding 2 plus 2 is equal to 4? The reason is we use artificial intelligence or machine learning where there can be infinite answers, and hence we cannot hard code every answer. And that is where ideally we should be using machine learning. So in case of machine learning, we code that please learn the responses, learn the answer from the data. Keep learning, because even the data, the file doesn't have all these solutions. You keep learning from it. So that is machine learning. Now then, what is deep learning? Because since morning we are seeing slides where AI, ML, and deep learning, all three are coming together. Deep learning is further subset of machine learning. You will say, hey, Baba, so much confusion, right? What machine learning does? Machine learning is saying, learn from data. Which data? Generally, machine learning uses structured data. Now you may think another jargon, structured data. Data which is in the form of tables, simplest definition. Data which is in the form of tables is structured data. For example, you download data from Tally, structured data. SAP, structured data. Oracle, structured data. Any tool which you are using, whether you are downloading in Excel, CSV, text file, just be format may you are downloading, you can always easily convert that into a tabular format. Hence, it is called structured data. Generally, we use machine learning models on structured data. For unstructured data, plus voice, plus images, plus videos, when you bring all these things together, that is where you use deep learning models. Simplest definition, simplest. Yeah, and this is where I try to bring it. Oh. So that's about difference between machine learning and deep learning. Machine learning primarily use text data, text, and deep learning you can use any other data which is unstructured. You can bring in voice, which means audio, and that is where Alexa Siri comes in. So now, if anybody asks you, Alexa Siri, which model they are using? Obviously, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence ke niche subset is machine learning, but is it using machine learning model or deep learning model? Yes. Machine learning, deep learning. Deep learning, so simple. Now you know. The moment it is about data which is in your laptop from any system, machine learning, anything else, video, photographs, audio, everything else, when those are getting used to come to an output, that is deep learning, point closed. Yeah? Robotics I already covered. Now quickly on new age organizations. You know, many times people ask why companies like Uber, Ola, Zomato, Swiggy, and other startups, why they are getting exponentially high valuations as compared to the traditional organizations. The difference lies in their enterprise IT model. And their IT model is based on something which is called SMAC. These are the organizations which are built to grow exponentially. For example, if you have opened franchisee, say for Coca-Cola, you cannot grow exponentially, because if you have set up a factory which can produce 720 BPM bottles per minute, it is 720 BPM maximum. Now, if you want to double the capacity, it will take time, because you will set up a second factory, or you will purchase a second factory from somebody else, but it is again a linear growth, not exponential. But new age organizations are not built on that model. They are built on something called SMAC. What is S? S means social. These organizations, and please keep all these new age organizations in your mind: Ola, Uber, Zomato, Swiggy, Flipkart, Amazon, Myntra, whatever. These organizations know that their customer base is on social media. Hence, they put all their marketing efforts on social media, not on television. So they get maximum bang for their money. That is one. So they are always on social. M stands for mobile. These are the organizations, new age organizations, they know that my customer is far more available on mobile phone as compared to laptop. For example, right now around 1,000 of you are sitting here. How many laptops are in the hand versus mobiles which are being scrolled even though I'm speaking, right? So the proportion will be very, the difference would be huge. And that is why these companies said, why to develop something for laptop which you may be using once or twice a day versus mobile, every 1 or 2 minutes you will be just checking, has my wife sent me a message or my girlfriend sent me a message. Hence, these companies are primarily available on mobile. Third, analytics. They are anytime, every time doing analysis of what you are doing. The moment you open your mobile and any app you open, anything you do on that app is getting captured. Which page you went to, how many seconds, how many minutes you were on that page, everything is processed so that to understand you better. And based on understanding you better, the right products are recommended to you. That happens through analytics. C, cloud-based. They are cloud-based. They are saying, if I set up my server farm, suppose they take a server room of this size. Now, suppose if the company wants to grow exponentially, they cannot break this wall and say, oh, this entire hall is mine. They can't grow exponentially. Hence, these companies are primarily on cloud. They are not setting up their own infrastructure because then they cannot grow exponentially. So fundamentally, if you see all 4 pillars on which new age organizations are built, they equip them to grow exponentially, and that is why they draw exponential valuations in the market. With that, now I come to a few use cases. In the interest of time, I have 5-6 minutes left. Let me quickly summarize the use cases of machine learning, AI, ML, Rajiv Gupta, Rajiv Kumar Gupta, Rajiv, whatever you want to say. The moment I summarize why we should be using AI, ML, the moment I talk about some of the use cases, you yourself will start answering why we should be doing it. Broadly, there are 2 purposes to use AI, ML. Only 2 purposes, broadly. First purpose, to understand your historic pattern. This is the first point. To understand your historic pattern. Why? So that we can predict what you will do tomorrow. That is first. That is the first purpose. Understand you better so that we can predict what you will do tomorrow. Second purpose is to classify you, to put all of you into groups. For example, if I want to say that, so suppose I am from a trouser company, I sell trouser, and today for demo, I have brought in the trouser color which matches with blue color shirt. So what I would like to do, I would like to make sure all those men and women who are wearing blue color shirt or t-shirt, I would like to segregate them so that I can invite those of you to my counter outside. Why I want to do that? Because remaining participants who are wearing white or yellow or something, you may not like my product today. So why to waste time on you? My also time is precious. Your time is precious. So this is the second and broadly the second most important use case of using machine learning. First one is prediction. Second one is grouping. Grouping ka another example. And here I need answer from you. Listen very carefully the example. Rajiv Gupta every day opens Amazon, but Amazon Fresh, and buy grocery every day. Daya Bhai, he also opens Amazon, maybe every day, maybe every week, maybe once a month. He only opens to buy electronics. Daya Bhai is there today? Yes, is there. He open to buy electronics. He looks at which new iPhone has come, which new iPad has come, which new phone has come. So these are 2 customers. Now here's the question for you all. Amazon wants to give offer to me. Now, if they want to give 20% discount offer to me, they will give me discount on groceries, which I buy, or they will give 10% discount to me on iPhone, which I never scroll Amazon for. Hanji. Which one Amazon will offer me? On grocery, how many you think on grocery? Few of you. How many of you think on iPhone? You guys are already ready, actually, to start using AI. You're absolutely right. Amazon will give me offer on iPhone, not on grocery. Why? Because grocery to बिक ही रहा है. Raji to रोज लेता ही है. And to Daya bhai, what they will offer? 20% discount on groceries. Because phone to वैसे वो ले ही लेंगे Amazon से. Because anyways, he's scrolling Amazon every day to check for the newer models. So this customer is already there as far as electronics is concerned. So this is the second use case of segregating customers. So Daya bhai and Rajiv, they are not the only two customers. Amazon has lakhs and lakhs of customers. So that's how they keep segregating customers. Why? So that they can give right offer to the right customer. Otherwise, waste of time and waste of customer also. No, not waste. I mean, loss of customer also. Yeah, because the customer will go to some other platform. Now, quickly, since I have almost 2 minutes left, let's look at the use cases. Some more use cases. Fraud detection, right? Why, in case of fraud, why for fraud detection? I said machine learning, only 2 use cases. Number 1, study historical data so that to predict. Second is classify. So this fraud detection is in category 1 or category 2? Category 1. Because fraud detection is based on the historical study of data, that how this customer has behaved in the past. Is he making too many returns? And when he's returning, he's saying, oh, I received a fake product. So is the customer problematic or the seller problematic? Yeah. So that's how the data is studied. So it will fall under the first category. Chatbots, all of you are seeing it. Chatbots are of 2 types, ladies and gentlemen, quickly. First set of chatbots are based on pure RPA, robots, wherein exact Q&As are fed into it. They are not intelligent. Because if you ask something which is intelligent, what it will say? For this question, I will connect you to human being. No, they call it customer care representative. So they are not intelligent. So they are pre-fed with Q&As. So they are bots. There are second set of chatbots which are AI based, where they keep on learning based on conversation with you. So there are 2 types, yeah. Robo advisor, you all would have seen. Now, whichever investment app you log into, be it Grow, Upstocks, Zerodha. No, I'm not sure about Zerodha. ET Money. All these apps, they themselves provide you robo advisor. So you don't need to pay thousands or lakhs of rupees to get advice on which share, which stock to invest on. So that has been automated. Speech recognition, you would have seen, be it Alexa, Siri, they are using speech recognition. And speech recognition, let's revise again. Is it machine learning, deep learning? Deep learning, you guys have become expert now. Sentiment analysis. Sentiment analysis quickly, sentiment. Sentiment analysis, study of data from the review comments, yeah? Now you may say, study of data, which is text. In general, text is machine learning, but machine learning in generally we use for structured data. But in case of text, for example, you open Book My Show and you put a review comment there, or you open Amazon and you say, oh, I didn't like this product, bad product, whatever. So that's not really a structured data in general. In general, we use deep learning for that. So that's the general use, sentiment analysis. And I would like to then stop here. Yeah, so I will stop here in the interest of time because I know there is one more session. Those of you who would like to connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn, and that's my QR code in case any one of you is interested. I'll stop here. Thank you so much. Okay, we have some Q&A as well. You have some Q&A, right?
Thank you so much, sir. And for all our audience, a reminder for all of you to please make sure that you have filled the survey research forms, because that is what we're next up to. So you can use this mic. So now we would be discussing the response of our audience in regards to this session's survey. And we have only received 122 responses. So all of you who have not yet submitted the feedback response form, I request you to please find it on the WhatsApp community group and kindly fill it so that we can analyze better what it is that our audience feels.
I think the first response is as expected. As the technology is still evolving, just like any other technology, I think not many people will have, not just here, everywhere. The awareness and the education and the training on that will take some time. So somewhat is a expected answer, and typically that is anywhere between 50 to 56%. I think here it is around 60%. It should be, it is in the range only as we expected. Anything from you, Rajiv? Okay, the second question was for the people who are not able to read it, which sector do you believe is currently benefiting the most from AI technology? The options were banking, finance, retail, all equally, and none. So I think the green one, which is all equally, is leading the chart. Probably many of them are in some advanced stages. If you look at in terms of the retail, they've been using it for some time now, and so probably some of the use cases that they apply when it comes to customer experience and operations and automating the process flows, I think they will be much more advanced, and banking is lagging in that technology. I think probably in next few years, if you ask the same question, banking would have taken an upper hand in terms of the application of the AI in that landscape.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. See, in my view, in the second one, which is which sector is currently benefiting, my view is it is actually the retail. And why I think so? Because retail is the one where people like you and me come into picture, and retail is enabling comfort for us. Be it Zomato, be it Swiggy, we are sitting at home, whether it is raining outside, we get our deliveries. When it was COVID, Amazon, Flipkart was still working, and we were at home and they were delivering to us. So whether it is convenience, whether it is comfort, whether it is problem solving, retail is the one where right now the maximum benefit is coming to people like you and me right now. Yeah.
Going to the third question, which AI application do you think has the most potential to transform the banking sector? I think the customer service, which of course expected, not many customers are happy the way banking services are globally. I'm not just talking about the Indian context. I think that is one area where there is a lot of scope for improvement, and application of the AI as a specific technology to improve it and engaging customer better and innovating product better and operating better and thereby reducing the cost, and the entire transformation using AI is going to be a much more better applicable in the banking sector and specifically in the customer experience sector.
Yeah, I will take this one. In the finance sector, which area do you think AI is most effectively improving? And the answer is around 33% is risk management, and then the second is green, which is financial forecasting is most effectively improving. I agree with you because be it banks, be it your credit card companies, be it companies making their decision on risk management, machine learning is playing very, very important role. And I will quickly give you an example. Suppose maybe you have a credit card which has a limit of say 5 lakh rupees. You are using that card for 2-3 years. For the first time, when you go to say jewelry shop, even if you buy something of say 50,000 rupees only, where limit is 5 lakh, immediately you will get a call when you swipe it. Why? Because as per the risk management, you never ever purchased jewelry, and jewelry is considered to be high risk item because small item and lakhs of rupees can be swindled. You will immediately get a call. But once you say, okay, yes, it is our authorized transaction, next time, even if you buy for 2 lakh, 3 lakh, 5 lakh, you may not get a call from the same bank. Why? Because they have now parked that transaction as an approved transaction for you. Maybe for 5 lakh, you may still get it. Why? Because you have breached the general value of the transaction which you do. So just like that, so they keep on learning, the system keep on learning how you generally behave, what you generally buy, and what is the value of items you buy. So I agree, risk management is one area where it is very effectively being used. Okay. How do you perceive the impact of AI on job roles in the retail sector? And the 41% is, sorry, I can't read this. Is it possible? Can you read it from there? What is that? Sometime, no.
What is it?
Is my number has to change or what? No. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Earlier, see, for companies which doesn't have huge data, for example, some time back I worked for FMCG company where each invoice used to be of lakhs of rupees. So for a month, the invoices you could download in Excel itself. But in case of e-commerce, 1 month data is into crores of line items, Excel only 10 lakh line items, yeah? That's the maximum. So how you will analyze and how you will make decision for new age companies if Excel's limit is 10 lakh and your data, 1 month data is into crores of line items. And that is where the way retail companies are making decision, that is changing. The data is now getting analyzed in different tools, more advanced analysis are being done, and then decisions are being taken. One quick addition to that, these companies today are not taking decision individually. They're keeping in mind that if I take this decision, suppose Swiggy takes one decision, they know immediately Zomato may also react. So then they keep that strategic point of view in mind. We are not the only player in the market. There are multiple players. So how my action will trigger counter action from my competitor. So all those aspects, which is called game theory, you may have read in maybe in statistics or somewhere. So that game theory is actually used in making strategic decisions on what pricing to keep, how much quantity, and all those things. So that's how the retail decision making is changing. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Thank you.
So once again, can we give a great round of applause for our speakers who shared with us their profound knowledge. And now I would be requesting CA Shri Girdhari Lal Toshniwal, Secretary of the Hyderabad branch, and CA ACS Reddy to please come forward and present memento to our speakers. I request them to please present it to CA Rajashekhara Visveswara. Can you have a great round of applause, please? And I now request him to present it to CA Rajiv Gupta.